Hi everyone, I'm Lady Teddy. I'm going to be reading out loud to you guys from Magium, which is a text-based choose-your-own-adventure story game app that is free on both Android and iOS, and I highly recommend it. I have a lot of respect for the author, so I always try and promote him. It is still coming out. I'm really excited because the next chapter of book 3 is supposed to be coming out sometime this month, and they left off in a really cool place. But anyways, the way this works is we're gonna be starting book 2 finally, because we finally got enough achievements to unlock book 2. It is a good, smart, fairy playthrough, so if it's a good, smart choice, I'm going to make it for you guys. But if it's just sort of a random choice, I will give you guys the option of participating and helping me make decisions. If people don't want to, there's absolutely no pressure. I'll normally give you guys about a minute, and if no one says anything, then I'll just move on. I know a lot of people just like falling asleep or listening, and that is totally okay. If anyone, I know that it's also in the middle of a story, so if there's anyone who has any questions, feel free to ask. And I lost my train of thought. I don't remember what I was going to say, but I'm sure that it will get here. I am just finishing up a stream, so I'm a little spacey. We'll see how this goes. Okay. And I've turned off all sound alert stuff so that it doesn't disturb people, so I would not recommend wasting points or bits on that. Turning off the music. Oh, I forgot to open it. Great. Good job. Got everything else set up, but forgot to open the game. Are you asking if I read manga in my own time? I read comics on like webtoons and sometimes other apps, but mostly webtoons. I haven't really been keeping up with most of my webtoons though. It can be kind of demanding sometimes. Why are you not opening? I believe in you.
Bitch!
You are a strong, independent, mobile emulator. I believe in you. Open the damn game. Esberg, thank you so much for the follow. How are you doing tonight? I have not watched Death Note. Why won't this game open? Jeez. Frustrating. I might not be able to read today because it's being There we go. Good job. I'm so proud of you. Cool. All right, switching over to the screen. And it looks like you guys are able to see it now. Cool, cool, cool. So, book 1 and save. Load. Okay. I do eat acai. I very much enjoy acai. There's this place by my house that has an amazing acai. They sell it in I think it's a 48 ounce. Like they have the largest size is a 48 ounce and it's like this big. And I mean, for that amount, it's expensive, but for that amount of acai and like fresh fruit, fresh fruit, like honey, it's so good. It's like $12, and that is kind of expensive, but for that much, that's like two or three, uh, meals, depending on how hungry you are. Sometimes I manage to eat in one sitting, but so good. Yeah, I love acai. I bet in Brazil it's really good. Okay, so starting book 2. This is the, again, good smart berry playthrough. These are what my stats are right now. Strength maxed, hearing max, observation max, ancient languages max, and I have 3 available stat points that I can distribute throughout the game. In this, they are doing a mage tournament. They're doing a mage tournament. He is a normal average human who's not a mage, but his dream is to become a mage, and he thinks that the prize for the tournament would help him become a mage, so his goal is to win just based on his knowledge and ability to lie about being a Stillwater, which is an extremely powerful type of mage that doesn't have a mage aura and is like legendarily powerful. A famous story is one of them made an entire city just vanish from existence, people, buildings, everything included, with the snap of his fingers. And throughout the game, throughout the tournaments, there are supposed to be objectives. And even though the tournament has been going on for a couple weeks, or not a couple weeks, several days, no one has received their objectives until the very end of book 1, where a big head announcement, yeah, like a hologram in the sky, started talking. Our first objectives, Hadrick asks. He's supposed to have like a Scottish accent, but I can't do accents, so just imagine that he is a Scottish accent. He speaks like a dwarf. Our first objectives, Hadrick asks. Did I hear him right? That's right, you heard me, Gulmick, the Gnome King says, as if he were responding to Hadrick's question. I am now going to announce the objectives of the tournament's first round, so you'd better pay attention because I'm not planning to repeat myself. Are you ready? Gulmick makes a short pause before he continues. Very well then, he says, your first objectives are as follows. You will need to each find a glowing pine cone and bring it to the city of Galamir. Glowing pine cones only grow on the continent of Varathia, so most of you may not know much about them. but they basically look just like regular pine cones, except they start glowing brightly when you take them in your hand. There is no time limit for completing these objectives, but the earlier you bring the pine cones to their destination, the quicker you can begin your next objectives, which I will give you a head start compared to the latecomers. Lastly, I would like to mention that in this round, you will be allowed to form teams with the other participants. A team can have as many members as you want, and if you all confirm that you are a part of the same team when you reach Galamir, you will pass the first round together as long as you have at least one pinecone with you. That would be all for now. Good luck! What? Hadrick shouts. He can't be serious. How can they even call this a mage tournament with objectives like that? What's next? Are they going to tell us to go and pick some flowers? Hadrick, Darren says with a very dark look on his face. I honestly could not give less of a damn about the tournament's objectives right now. Oh, I almost forgot something very important, Golmuk says. Darren, the healer in armor, and all the members of his group are to present themselves at the gate of the royal castle of Thilius in exactly 5 hours. This includes the dwarf, the artificial mage, and the Lasathi. Failure to do so will result in their disqualification from the tournament. The little girl that travels with them may also join them if she wishes, but she is not required to. Thank you all for listening. Have a nice day! The gnome then presses the button and the transmission gets interrupted, with the holographic screens in the air starting to disappear slowly one by one. Wait, how did he know that Barry was a Lasathi? Hadrick says. Didn't Barry himself only find out about this recently? Storm, thank you. That's why I do this. I'm glad that you like my voice. The fact that the King of Thilius knew both about Barry and Kate's true identities strongly suggests that he's been keeping an eye on us for a while, Luna says. He must... The fact that the King of Thilius knew both about Barry and Kate's true identities strongly suggests that he's been keeping an eye on us for a while, Luna says. He must have spies that inform him of everything that goes on in his kingdom. I wouldn't be too surprised if he knew about my existence as well. Oh, crap, Hadrick says. If that's the case, then maybe he also knows about me being a giant. Maybe they're calling me to the castle to kick me out of the tournament. They're summoning us because of what happened with the noble yesterday, Darren says. They even have bounties on our head. We shouldn't be too surprised that they'd want to interrogate us. Come on, let's head towards Rose's house. Going to the hospital now is out of the question without Rose to guide us, and it would be prudent to get our backpacks before we head towards the castle. Darren pauses. One of us will have to go deliver the news of Rose's death to her siblings when we get there. He says, volunteer to deliver the news to the kids, stay silent. So good Barry would volunteer. Achievement unlocked. Bearer of bad news. I'll do it, I say. I'll try to break it to them as gently as possible. Darren gives me a long look for a few seconds, and he doesn't appear to be very comfortable leaving this matter in my hands, but he doesn't seem to want to be the one to deal with it either, and neither does anyone else, by the looks of it. All right, Darren says finally. Barry will be the one to give the news to the kids. Any objections? Everyone stays silent. Even Kate and Flower both look towards the ground. It's settled then, Darren says. Let's get going. We'll have to take the same route we took when we came here to avoid getting lost. Follow me. Can I have a Raka back, please? Flower asks Hadrick as we start heading towards the mansion. Actually, I think I'd rather hold on to her for a little longer if you don't mind, Hadrick says. Well, okay. Flower says. But make sure to keep an eye on her. Don't worry, Hedrick says as he starts to spin the amulet again. I'll be sure to give her all the attention she needs. As we follow Darren and go back the way we came, we all follow Darren and go back the way we came, as we slowly begin to leave the slums behind us and to enter the richer district that Rose's house is situated in. Nobody said a single word while we walked down the alleys, not even Hedrick. Kate in particular seems to be the most affected by what had happened, and the expression on her face was very painful to watch. Amidst the silence, an enraged Araka would occasionally start showering us with a variety of insults and threats, as Hedrick ignored her and kept spinning her amulet despite her never-ending complaints. Will you shut up? Will you shut her up? Darren says after a while. I've already had enough of Araka to last me for a week. You don't need to hear her constant yammering the entire trip. Oh, right, sorry, Hedrick says as he closes the amulet and then continues to spin it by the chain. Araka's shouting is still audible, but it's more of a mild annoyance now that the sound has become muffled. I think my wrist is starting to go numb from all of the spinning, Hedrick says a few minutes later. Barry, what do you say? Do you want to give this a try? I assure you it's a very rewarding experience. Sure, why not? I think I'll pass, thanks. So I'm gonna go with this one, because good, Barry. Araka is a very powerful banshee, very evil banshee that is trapped in an amulet that they wear around the neck. They have to keep it with them because if she's not monitored, she will be able to channel an explosion to escape. Towards the end of the first book, she did manage to escape, and she killed the entire party in a very slow and painful way. And then Rose, who is she's still a time weaver, managed to rewind time to before she escaped. So now they're all mad at her, and she gets motion sickness with the amulet spinning, so that's why he's doing it, as revenge. That's why everyone's mad at her, and is careful, and that's why he's spinning it. I think I'll pass, thanks. Suit yourself, Hedrick says, but seriously, you don't know what you're missing. I've been thinking, Kate says all of a sudden. Could Rose perhaps not be completely dead? Could she still be in there somewhere inside her body? Oh, when she died, someone had cast a spell to bring her back to life as a reaver, as sort of a sacrifice for the King of the Dead. So she is she's sort of like an undead slave. She doesn't have the same personality anymore, but she still has the same memories. But she is no longer Rose. Kate, Darren starts to say, but Kate continues to speak, this time raising her voice a little. Have a good rest of your... It's 5 p.m. there, right? Ish. Have a good rest of your night. Thank you for hanging out, Storm. Kate. Oh. Maybe there's still some way to bring her back, she says, looking at each of us in turn, seeking our approval. Maybe if we defeat that follower of Ulrich who stole her body, we can bring her back to normal. We can't know until we try. Kate, please, Darren says as he stops and looks Kate straight in the eye. Don't make me say this again. Rose is dead. You can't bring back the dead, no matter how hard you try. But how can you know for sure that she's dead? Kate says with desperation visible in her eyes. You heard what she said before she left. You all heard her. She told us to take care of her siblings. Why would she say something like that if a part of Rose wasn't still in there somewhere? Revenants are born with the memories of their hosts, Iluna says. Because of this, it is common for them to be confused at first, but to have a bit of an identity crisis as they struggle to differentiate between their own thoughts and the ones that they inherited from their hosts. Then maybe we can still, Kate starts to say, but Iluna cuts her off. Even if they may sometimes choose to uphold some of their old hosts' values and principles, Iluna says, the revenants are still completely different entities than their body's previous owners. A revenant cannot be born if their host is still alive. The very fact that this revenant came to be is proof that Rose was already dead when the servant of Ulrich took hold of her body. But, Kate starts to argue again, this time with a lot more hesitation in her voice, but maybe if we... She stops when she realizes that she no longer has any valid arguments to bring to the table. Instead of continuing her train of thought, her gaze turns towards the ground and she doesn't say another word. I'm sorry, Darren says as he turns back and he starts to walk towards Rose's house again. We all follow him, one by one, with Kate being the last to move from her spot. The rest of our journey towards the mansion was spent in complete silence. When we got closer to the mansion, Rose's siblings noticed us from afar, and came running to greet us. Where's Rose? Susie says after looking around for a few seconds. Did she stay behind at the hospital? Everyone looks towards me, and I step forward, clearing my throat nervously. What's wrong? Susie asks, starting to get concerned. Did something happen to Rose? Yes, I say. We were attacked on our way to the hospital. We thought that Rose would be safe, but she... I paused, not knowing how exactly I should deliver the news without causing her a shock. Oh, gods, Susie says. Is she... She stops for a second before she continues. Is she dead? She asks. Her direct question took me by surprise. Before I got the chance to answer, Darren steps in front of me and he kneeled in front of Susie, with his head bowed down. I'm sorry, he says. It was my fault. I promised I'd protect her and I... It's okay, Susie says, forcing herself to smile. Rose told us long ago that we should always be prepared for this to happen. She taught us how to cook our own food and how to clean the house and everything else we need to know in case she never came back from one of her journeys. When Susie talks, her brother is trying hard to hold back his tears. We promised her that no matter what happened, we wouldn't cry. Susie says, we promised her that we'd stay strong and that... She stops for a second to rub her eyes with her sleeve, and that we would always remember her with a smile, Susie says with a much shakier voice than before. And that we would keep living our lives and be happy and... The girl can't contain her tears anymore, and she suddenly breaks down crying. Her brother, who is also at his limit, starts to cry as well, in a much louder voice. Hey now, we hear a man's voice coming from behind us. What kind of monsters would make such a beautiful cry like this? We turn around and see that the man who spoke is almost as tall as Darren, with a well-toned muscular build, wearing a shirt that was half unbuttoned, with long black hair that reached his shoulders, and a bristly mustache covering his whole upper lip. On his left hip, he is wearing a golden scabbard that appears to be holding a rather expensive sword, at least judging by the multitude of gemstones decorating its hilt. The man stops in front of Susie, and he wipes her tears gently with his right hand. Did these mean people upset you, my dear Susie? The man asks her. Uncle, Enrique, Susie says, barely able to control her voice. It's Rose. She... The girl struggles to get the words out of her mouth as she is drowning in tears. She's dead, Uncle, she says. Rose is dead. She then hugs her uncle as hard as she can while she is trying hard to contain her sobs. Rose is dead? Enrique says with a mixture of both pain and shock in his voice. His look then gradually darkens as he looks towards us. Are they the ones who are responsible for this? Enrique says as he starts to slowly pull his sword out of his scabbard. No! Susie shouts. It wasn't them. They tried to protect her. They're her friends. I am the one who let Rose die, Darren says as he steps towards Enrique and bows his head before him. I promised that I would keep her safe, but I failed her. I cannot even begin to express my apologies. After seeing the pained expression on Darren's face, Enrique slowly calms down, walks over to him, and then places a hand on his shoulder. There's no need to apologize, my friend, Enrique says. It is I who should apologize for jumping to conclusions earlier. It's clear that you've suffered a great deal from this as well. Enrique then walks past Darren, and he takes a good look at each of us in turn. Cheer up, my friends, he says. Why all the long faces? Rose would not want to see you like this. She would have wanted you to smile. We should not be mourning Rose's loss. We should be celebrating your safe return. And as Rose's friends, you are all my friends as well. He turns towards Susie. Susie, he says, bring me the finest bottle of wine from the cellar, the one we were saving for a special occasion. You know which one I'm talking about, yes? Yes, Uncle, Susie says as she wipes her tears with her sleeve again, and she stops crying all of a sudden. I'll bring it right away. Now then, friends of Rose, Enrique says as Susie starts rushing towards the house, before we toast, I would like to hear your names. It would be uplifting. It would be unfitting to not know the names of the people I intend to share a drink with. Is this really the time and place to have a drink? Shouldn't we be discussing what we're going to do with the kids first? If we're going to have a drink, then why not go all in and have some Dwarven ale? I feel like good smart berry would do any of these. This one is... I would be inclined to go with this one or this one. I'll give y'all about a minute to make a decision. If anyone would like to participate, now is your chance. If not, no pressure. Okay. I'll go with this one. Shouldn't we be discussing what we're going to do with the kids first? You need not worry about that, Enrique says. I have everything under control. In what way, I ask? I will give you more details as soon as our drinks arrive, Enrique says. Such important matters are best discussed over a glass of fine wine. I'm sure that your dwarven friend would agree with me on this as well. Well, if you were to ask me, I would probably replace the fine wine in your phrasing with dwarven ale, Hadrick says, but I guess we can agree to it in a general sense at least. My name's Hadrick, by the way. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Hadrick then shakes Enrique's hand and he introduces the rest of us in turn. This here's Barry, Hadrick says. This is Darren. And over here we have Kate, and the little girl's name is Flower. Oh, and we also have 2 banshees. One inside of the little girl's body. The one inside of the little girl's body is named Luna, and the one in the amulet I'm holding is named Araka. There is a barely audible mumbling sound coming from the closed amulet as Hadrick stops talking, but nobody pays it any mind. 2 banshees, Enrique says, shocked. And Rose was friends with both of them? Well, not both of them, Hadrick says. The one in the amulet is more our prisoner than our ally, really. But Aluna and Rose were definitely very good friends. Well, in that case, she will always be welcome here, banshee or no, Enrique says. Ah, here comes our wine. Susie, who is now hurrying towards us with a bottle of wine in her hands, while behind her we could see Ella, who seems to have fully recovered after last night, and who was carrying a plate that had several wine glasses on top of it. When the 2 of them arrive, they place both the plate and the bottle on a picnic table next to us, and then Susie starts to open the bottle. By the gods, Enrique says when he sees Ella, my eyes have been truly blessed to bear witness to such beauty. He then bows gallantly and kisses her hand. If my heart didn't already belong to Rose for all eternity, I would have likely fallen for you in an instant, Enrique says. Ella is looking a bit confused after hearing Enrique's words, but instead of answering him, she decides to bow elegantly and to introduce herself. My name is Ella, the girl says. I have heard from Susie what happened to Miss Rose. I am sorry for your loss. For a moment, there was a glimmer of sadness in Enrique's eyes as he heard Ella's words, but he quickly forced back a cheerful smile on his face before he spoke again. There's no reason for you to apologize, my dear, Enrique says. You had nothing to do with this. I assume you are the new master of this house, Ella says. I believe I owe you an explanation for my being here. You see, Rose has only just hired me yesterday to work as... Ella pauses for a few seconds before she continues as she slowly lowers her head. As a slave, she says. I am well trained in house cleaning and cooking, and I also know how to read and write. If you will have me, I promise that I will serve you as faithfully as I served her. I'm going to stop you right there, Ella, Enrique says, as he gently lifts the girl's chin with his hands so she can look directly in his eyes. You should not be telling such lies. The Rose I knew would never have hired a slave to work for her. No matter what your past may have been, once you became a part of this family, you did so as a free woman, and not as a slave. As long as you work in this house, you are prohibited to call yourself a slave any longer. Are we clear? Yes, sir, Ella says, smiling faintly as tears start to form in her eyes. Very well, then, Enrique says. He turns to us. Well, he says, what are you all waiting for? This wine isn't going to drink itself. Uncle, Susie's brother Kevin says as he pulls on Enrique's sleeve, while still sniffing with tears in his eyes. Uncle, what are we going to do? How are we going to live without Rose? We've tried hard to learn how to live by ourselves. We've handled ourselves for weeks while Rose was on her journeys. We learned how to buy food and how to cook and how to use the fireplace, but we can't Do not worry, my young friend, Enrique says as he pats Kevin on his head. You will not have to learn how to live by yourselves because starting tomorrow I will move back in with you. You will? You will? Kevin asks. Of course I will, Enrique says. Would I lie to you? Once I bring back all of my belongings, I will be living here again. It will be just like the good old times. Upon hearing Enrique's words, Susie, who is busy filling the glasses with wine, comes running to her uncle and gives him a big hug again. Thank you, Uncle, she says. Thank you so much. I didn't think you'd ever come back. I'm sorry to interrupt, Kate says, but from what Rose told us, I understood the reason you two got divorced was that you wanted to spend time with other women. Shouldn't you be discussing this with your current wife before making such promises? Lover, Enrique says. I beg your pardon, Kate says. Lover, not wife, Enrique says. Rose has been and will always remain my only wife. Right, Kate says. Your lover. What do you think her reaction will be to all of this? Can you be so sure that she will agree to move into this house with you just to take care of your ex-wife's siblings? Oh, she will be furious, Enrique says. She cannot stand children. Then how could you make such a promise in her name without consulting her first? Kate asks. Oh, I never made the promise in her name, Enrique says. In fact, I intend to break up with her as soon as I get back home. You're going to break up with your lover just to move in with Rose's siblings? Kate asks, somewhat shocked. Of course, Enrique says. Why are you so surprised? She will be missed, but in the end, she's just another woman who only loves me for my money and my good looks. I should have little trouble replacing her. There are plenty of other fish in the sea. He laughs. Now then, grab your drinks, everyone, Enrique says. Today, we toast for Rose, the most beautiful and kind-hearted woman I've ever known, and the love of my life. May she always be remembered, and may she continue to live in our hearts, from now and forevermore. After hearing Enrique's speech, we all decided to take our wine glasses and to join in on the toast. The next half hour was spent talking about Rose. We told Enrique of the adventures we've had with her for the past week, and he told us of their years together at the mansion. It was clear that none of us were in the mood for drinking or telling stories, but it didn't matter. Enrique was right. Rose would not have wanted us to spend our lives in regret. And we couldn't afford to avoid talking about her from now on just because it hurt to remember her. Rose did not deserve this. While we talked, it was becoming more and more obvious that despite his cheerful act, Enrique was likely the one who was suffering the most from Rose's loss. However, when he talked about Rose, his smile would become genuine. And even Kate had managed to smile once or twice during our long conversation. When time began to run out, we told Enrique that we needed to be heading towards the castle, and we each went to get our backpacks before starting out on our new journey. As we were about to set out, Enrique took us aside for a moment to have a word with us, away from the kids. There's something that I did not dare ask in front of the children, Enrique says. I saw that you did not bring Rose's body with you when you returned to the mansion, so I assumed the worst, but I need to know. How did Rose die? Tell him about the Revenant, tell him that Rose's body was incinerated by a fire elementalist mage. I think the smart berry would know that she might end up turning up again, so it would be better to just tell him about the Revenant. If someone would like to Welcome back, Marshmang. I don't know if you were there for the end of book 1, because we're starting book 2 now. Good, Smartberry. Rose was a member of the party temporary member of the party, who was killed. So now they are discussing, and then she was not revived. A revenant spirit took a hold of her body to get her time powers. So right now we're deciding to tell her ex-husband, who will be taking care of her siblings, who are, I think, 6 and 7, whether, because he's asking where her body is. The kind thing might be to tell him that the body was incinerated, but I think the smart thing would be to tell him that there's a revenant walking around in her body, just in case they run into each other again. This is going to be a bit hard to believe, I say. Oh, believe me, I am not a stranger in the world of magic, Enrique says. I am prepared for anything. Well, I say, what happened was that after Rose was killed, her body was taken by an entity that is called a revenant. When you say her body was taken, Enrique starts to say, but Darren answers his question before he finishes. He means that an evil spirit took a hold of her body after she died. Darren says, and I suppose that there is no way to bring Rose back, even if you killed this evil spirit? Enrique asks. No, there isn't, Darren says. I'm sorry. I understand, Enrique says. He pauses. If the children ever ask me what happened to Rose, I will tell them that her body was incinerated, Enrique says. I would rather have them believe this than give them nightmares. Then we'll make sure to tell them the same story if they ever ask us, Darren says. Thank you, Enrique says. He then turns to face all of us. My friends, I'm sorry that we did not have the chance to meet under better circumstances, he says. Just know this. Whether you decide to remain in the city or to leave before dusk, you will always be welcome here. When you decide to come back, may the gods be with you. May they watch over us all, Darren says. Goodbye, Enrique, and good luck. Once we all said our goodbyes to Enrique and to Rose's siblings, we went on our way, taking the shortest route we knew to the castle. According to Enrique, as long as we kept walking in the same general direction, we should be coming across a lot of signposts showing us the right way to our destination, so we shouldn't be too worried about getting lost. Do you think they'll be all right? Kate asks me. Rose's siblings, I mean. I'm not sure how much I can trust that man to take care of them from now on. Well, Rose definitely trusted him enough to leave him in charge of checking up on her siblings while she was gone, I say, and his concern for the children looked genuine to me. Plus, the kids seemed to love him. I don't think we have anything to worry about. I guess you might be right, Kate says. He did seem serious when he said he'd break up with his lover to move in with them. Maybe I was just worrying over nothing. Look, there's another one of those signposts, Hadrick says. We're still on the right track. It took us a little less than 2 hours to reach the castle of Thilius from Rose's mansion. When we reached the front gates, Darren signaled the guards to let us through, and once they confirmed our identities, they opened the doors. We all stepped inside slowly as the gate slammed shut behind us. Wait, is this all new to you? you as well. No, it's been a while since I've read it myself, but the author is still releasing chapters, and he's nearing the end of the third book. I'm up to date. I've only done my playthrough though, so I've only taken one path. A lot of this is new to me, but the general story is not. The path that I took, though, I saved Rose. So, there's going to be a lot that's new. From reading the forums on Reddit, I vaguely know a lot of stuff that's going to happen, though. There's an odd thing about this castle. I noticed it even before we went inside. The castle's windows looked as if they were supposed to have precious gems encrusted on their frames, but the gems were all missing. It also seemed as if several decorations had been ripped off from the towers. The castle's interior looks even worse. The hallways are completely empty. There are no paintings on the walls, no carpets on the ground, and no vases on the tables. The place looks even more like a dungeon than a castle. Place looks more like a dungeon than a castle. There aren't even any guards patrolling the hallways. I'm almost starting to wonder if we didn't somehow end up in the wrong place. This feels like the Ogre Fort all over again, Hadrick says as he opens Araka's amulet. Hey you, Araka, are you sensing any guards hiding invisibly around here? Answer me. Araka makes no sound, acting as if she weren't hearing a word of what Hadrick was saying. Giving me this silent treatment, eh? Hadrick says with a grin. Suddenly, Kate freezes the whole area around us, making it look as if we were inside some frozen palace from a fairy tale. The area is clear, Kate says. There's no one surrounding us. Great, Darren says. Now unfreeze the damn hallway before anyone sees... Oops. Before Darren got to finish his sentence, a door in front of us opened slightly, and a man that appeared to be some kind of a servant from the castle stuck his head out of it. The king will... The man starts to say, but he suddenly stops talking due to the shock of seeing the whole hallway completely frozen. After a few seconds, the man starts talking again, choosing to act as if nothing had happened. The king will be notified of your arrival shortly, the servant says. Please wait in this hallway until it is time for your scheduled appointment. He then closes the door without saying another word. Well, you heard the man, Flower says. We still have plenty of time left until the meeting. Let's go exploring. What are you talking about? Darren says. He told us to wait here. And Kate still needs to unfreeze this hallway before anyone else sees. I can't unfreeze it, Kate says. It will melt on its own in a few hours. We don't have a few hours, Darren says. If the king sees this, he'll have our heads. Relax, Hadrick says. What's the worst that could happen? Good gods, man, Darren says, exasperated. Isn't there anything that ever sets you off? All of a sudden, the whole area around us gets covered in flames, and all of the ice quickly melts into water, which then almost immediately evaporates into thin air. The flames then disappear as quickly as they appeared, leaving the hallway in the same state as it was when we first came in. There, Flower says. I took care of it. Now does anyone want to go exploring? Sure, I'll go. No, I'd rather stay here. I feel like good smart berry would, like, neither of these are good smart. I mean, both have their benefits. So if someone would like to weigh in, now is your chance. I'll give you all a minute. We're not in a combat situation, so you don't need to worry about killing Barry, probably. But we're not in combat. Sure, I'll go. Perfect, Flower says. Follow me. Oh, come on, Darren says. What are we supposed to tell you? What are we supposed to tell that servant guy if he comes back and asks for you? There's no warning. I mean, I do let you kill him frequently because it's part of the story, but this isn't betrayal. Tell him we'll be right Tell him we'll be right back, I say, and then give me a call through the transceiver. Darren shakes his head in disapproval, but he doesn't say anything else. I go catch up to Flower, who seems to have stopped in front of a wall not far from our original position. After looking at the wall from different angles, the girl starts to knock on the bricks one by one as if she were searching for something. Is there anything special about this wall? I ask her. Shush! I'm trying to listen, Flower says as she continues to knock on the bricks. After a few more seconds, the girl finally seems to have found what she was looking for, and she starts to pull one of the bricks out of the wall with both of her hands. As she puts the brick down, I see that inside the hole left in the wall there is a small wooden lever. Wow, you sure know your stuff, huh? I tell Flower. Of course, Flower says. Petal and I have been through dozens of ruins with hidden passages before. It's sort of our hobby. Less of a hobby and more of a tendency to get into mortal peril on a weekly basis, Luna says as the girl's eyes turn bright blue again. I got it, Flower says as she pulls the wooden lever. As soon as she releases the lever, the bricks surrounding it start to get pushed inside the wall, making way for us to pass into the other side. We both go beyond the wall and enter a small dark room that has a stone pedestal in the middle of it. Upon closer examination, it seems that there is some writing on the top of the pedestal, but it is too dark to make out what it says. Flower makes a small orb of fire, which she sends floating above the pedestal so I can read the writing on it. Now that I get a clear look at it, it appears that the text is written in the common language. What does it say? Flower asks. The Long Cat, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. How's your night going? What does it say? Flower asks. It says, place your palm on this pedestal if you like discovering secrets. Oh, I love discovering secrets, Flower says as she quickly places her palm on top of the stone pedestal. Achievement unlocked. Second piece of the puzzle. Suddenly, a hole appears at the base of the pedestal and two small objects get thrown out of it. As I reach to get them, the hole closes itself back up again. Getting a closer look at the two items, I see that one of them is a piece of a puzzle, while the other one is a small parchment. I hold the parchment in my hand so that both Flower and I can see what's written on it. As I read the text on the parchment, I notice that it's written in the common language as well, and that it says, Find all of the pieces of this puzzle, and I will share with you my greatest secret. I've left one of these in each of the buildings I've designed. The parchment is then signed as simply this building's architect. It would appear that this castle's architect is also the one who designed the ruins from the forest. I now have two of these puzzle pieces left in my possession. I wonder how many of them are left. Hey, this sounds like fun, Flower says. I want one too. She puts her palm in the pedestal again, but this time nothing happens. But it doesn't let me get another one, Flower says. Barry, you try it. Hey, Barry, can you hear me? I hear Darren's voice coming from the transceiver. Yeah, I can hear you, I say as I grab the transceiver in my right hand. Flower frowns at me for ignoring her, and she takes my left hand herself, placing it on the pedestal. Just like before, the base of the pedestal opens up and throws out another puzzle piece and parchment. Flower takes both items and puts them in her pocket. The castle servant came back, Darren says. He said the king will see us now. Hurry up and get back here, will you? Yeah, we're on our way, I say. After we make our way out of the dark room behind the wall, Flower puts on the lever again, and the bricks go back into their original position. She then grabs the brick off the ground and carefully places it back into the wall. We wouldn't want anyone else to discover the secret before us, would we, Barry? Flower says with a smile. I suppose not, I say as we start to head back to where everyone else was waiting for us. Well, Darren says when we reach him. Did you find what you were looking for? Yep, Flower says with a cheerful smile. Spectacular, Darren says. Now let's get moving. We open the doors that the castle servant used earlier, and we enter a long, empty hallway that seems to lead directly to the throne room. Before opening the last set of doors, Darren looks at each of us in turn to confirm that we are ready, and then we all step inside of the throne room one by one. The throne room looks just as empty as every other part of the castle, except there's a long, narrow red carpet leading to the throne on the opposite side of the chamber, where the king is currently sitting. Standing beside him, we can see the servant from before, and on the other side, an old man that I do not recognize, but who appears to be rather important, at least judging by his expensive clothing. The gnome is now dressed in a more kingly manner than when he made his last appearance, having a golden crown on his head and a red mantle on his shoulders. When we arrive in front of us, he greets us courteously. Welcome, friends, Golmick says. Please, make yourselves at home. I'm sorry for the lack of chairs, but I've been told repeatedly that it would not be fitting for ordinary people to be seated in the presence of a king. Skip the formalities, King of Thilius, says the important-looking man says. This isn't the time and place to observe proper etiquette. Now, Ambassador, Golmick says, proper etiquette is always important, lest we descend into barbarism. You speak to me of barbarism when the people standing before us are proven murderers, the ambassador says. I did not come here to hear your lectures. I came here to have the name of King I came here in the name of King Allendor in order to make sure that the murderers of His Majesty's brothers are rightfully punished. Murderers they may be, Golmick says, but they are also our esteemed guests, and I would like to at least hear their reasons before deciding their punishment. He then turns to us. What say you, brave warriors? The gnome says. What was your reason for killing the Earl of Allendor? The guy was asking for it. We didn't kill him. We're innocent. We killed him because he placed absolutely no value on human life. They did not kill him. They assaulted him, and then Eden killed him. But I will leave it up to you because the guy was asking for it, and he also placed no value on human life. But I feel like the smart answer would be this, because they didn't kill him. I doubt that the ambassador of Allendor cares. Y'all have a minute. Well, it matters to the king of Thilius. It doesn't matter to the ambassador of Allendor. Achievement unlocked. Half-breed. We didn't kill him, we're innocent. Innocent, you say, Golmick says, while stroking his chin. Now that I think about it, our reports did show that there was also another person there with you when you attacked the Earl. Are you saying that this other person is in fact responsible for the Earl of Allendor's death? Yes, exactly, I say. Eden was the one who killed him, not us. And who is this Eden, may I ask? Golmick says. Right after hearing me speak Eden's name, the ambassador let out a squeal, and since then he's been sweating all over, looking quite agitated. Is there something wrong, Ambassador? Golmick asks him. Lies, the ambassador blurts out suddenly. The boy is lying. There's no way that man would have ever associated himself with the likes of them. What man? Golmick asks. Are you talking about this Eden character? Your Majesty, Darren interrupts as he places himself in front of me, and then he bows before the king. Please allow me to explain what happened. Psst! I hear Araka's voice coming from the amulet as soon as Darren begins to speak. Hey, you there, weakling, stat wielder guy, half Lasathi. Come here. Half Lasathi? I ask her as I get closer to Hadrick and the amulet. Never mind that, Araka says in a low voice. We've got trouble. Eden just teleported in the middle of the hallway. He's hiding with that invisibility spell of his. Eden? I ask her. Why would he choose to come now of all times? I don't know and I don't care, Araka says. I promised that I'd let you know when Eden was near, and I've kept my word. Now, will you tell this buffoon holding my amulet to stop spinning me with every opportunity he gets? Right, I say. I'll see what I can do about it. While I was talking with Araka, it seems that the discussion between the king and the ambassador has gotten a bit more heated. You would defend this filth? The ambassador shouts loudly at the Gnome King. I'm not defending anyone, Golmick answers him calmly. I'm simply saying that before condemning them, they'd need to be offered a fair trial. These scum do not deserve a trial, the ambassador shouts. They deserve to be executed on the spot. Do you want war, King of Thilius? Need I remind you that I represent the King of Allendor himself? I will not stand here to witness this mockery of a trial when we already have all the information we need to pass their sentence this very instant. You will have them killed right here and now, or there will be war. Do you hear me, Golmick? War! I'm afraid that I cannot let you execute these people, Ambassador. We hear Eden's voice coming from behind us. As we turn around, Eden starts to walk slowly towards the ambassador, and he stops right in front of him. The ambassador is now sweating all over, and it looks like he's barely able to maintain his composure. What's the matter, Ambassador? Eden says with a smirk. Aren't you going to bow before your creator? Temptress of the Moon, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. How's your night or day? Or whatever it is, wherever you are going. I hope you're enjoying this. The whole room falls completely silent as the ambassador tries hard to force a humble expression on his face while he bows slowly before Eden. As always, I am but your humble servant, the ambassador says, sounding as if he were experiencing great pain with every word he spoke. It is an honor to have you in these halls, O great creator. What? Flower and Darren both shout at the same time. Wait a minute, Hadrick says. Creator, as in the founder of the civilization of Varathia? is that the creator we're talking about here? I'm surprised that you didn't know this by now, Eden says with a puzzled expression on his face. Didn't Araka tell you? She was there when it all began, after all. There was a few moments of silence during which we all turned our gaze towards Araka's amulet. What? What, I didn't mention it? Araka says. I guess it must have slipped my mind. Aha, 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 ha, 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 ha. I need to learn how to fake laugh. So you are the creator that I've been hearing so much about, Golmik says while stroking his chin. I am indeed, Eden says, and I must say that I am a big fan of your work. I heard that the first thing you did when you moved into the royal castle was to strip it of anything of value, sell everything, and then give the money to the poor. The nobility in all of Varathia have been in uproar for months after the event. It was a most entertaining spectacle to see. I was always of the opinion that the royal castle belongs not to the royal family, but to the people, Golmik says. I only did what anyone else would have done in my place if they had been chosen by the people to represent their interests. I think you might be holding too high of an opinion of the people under your rule, King of Thelius, Eden says with a polite smile. Creator, the ambassador says as he finally musters up the courage to speak again. I know that your word is law throughout the whole continent of Varathia, but I must insist. The continent of Varathia, Eden interrupts him. You people always called it that, didn't you? But the size of Varathia is nowhere near the size of any other continent in the world. If anything, it is more of an island, really. In fact, if I recall correctly, that is how I named this place after the still winter. The island of Varathia. The island of freedom. Why did people start calling this a continent, I wonder? Was it because you felt left out when you discovered that there was a world outside of Varathia? Was it perhaps to satisfy your own egos, fooling yourselves into believing that you could compare with the civilizations from other continents? Creator, please, the ambassador says. I don't know what your affiliation is with these mages, but they have done us a great harm. A life has been lost that can never be replaced. It would be most tragic if the victim's killers were to be simply set free. Oh, Eden says with an evil smile, and what if I told you that I was, in fact, both the one that gave them the ability to hurt the people of Varathia, and the one who killed your beloved Earl? The ambassador is now sweating even harder than before, and he seems to be too afraid to give Eden an answer. Seeing the expression on his face, Eden starts to laugh. Do not worry, Ambassador, he says. I never suggested that they should be set free. However, I believe we can all agree that the execution would be a dull way for such powerful mages to meet their demise. What do you have in mind, then? The ambassador asks. The arenas, of course, Eden says. Have them thrown in the arena, and if they somehow manage to survive until the end, then it will mean that the gods have seen fit to acquit them of their crimes. The rules of the arena state that you may not use magic during the fights, so they won't get any unfair advantages over the other gladiators. There are even magic detectors placed all around the fighting area to make sure that there's no cheating. Yes, but, the ambassador says, if they somehow manage to survive, the King of Allendor will... Are you trying to say that the fabled arenas of Varathia, the pride of your continent, are not enough to stop a mere handful of mages that can't even cast any spells? Eden says with a wicked smile. No, the ambassador says. No, of course not. The ambassador stops for a few seconds to clear his thoughts. Very, very well then, he says finally. The criminals will face their sentence in the arena, but I will oversee the proceedings personally. I want to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Of course, Ambassador, Golmick says. The arenas are yours for the duration of these events. The ambassador pauses again. 3 days, he says. In 3 days I will arrange the greatest arena event in the whole history of Varathia. Until then, the criminals are to be locked in the cells beneath the arena of Thilius, along with the other gladiators. It is settled then, Eden says. I look forward to seeing what you will have in store for us, Ambassador. I will be seeing you again on the day of the main event. Do not disappoint me. With these last words, Eden teleports out of the room without a trace, as he always does. You criminals are coming with me, the ambassador says. I don't want you roaming the streets and putting any more innocent lives in danger. Actually, Ambassador, Golmick says, I would like to have a word with them in private first, if you don't mind. I'll be sure to have one of my servants escort them to their cells shortly afterwards. The ambassador says. Do what you will. I'm not planning to waste any more time here. I've got business to attend to. Just make sure that they're all in their cells by midnight. The ambassador then walks away from us and out of the room, slamming the door shut behind him on his way out. All right then, Golmick says as he gets up from his throne. Follow me. I'd rather not have our discussion in this dull place. I'm now going to lead you to my real castle, where we can talk to our heart's content, until it is time to lead you to the arena. What makes you think that we'll simply agree to be led to the arena? Real castle? How many castles do you have in this place anyways? So, what exactly are these events we need to win in order to be set free, then? So, I think Smartberry knows that he will eventually be told this information. So, and Smartberry, well, one of these. I'll give you a minute. I'm hoping to finish this chapter, but I've been reading for an hour and 14 minutes now, so I'll have to wrap this up soon. Oh, I've been recording. Streaming for almost 5 hours. I mean, he did say he has a real castle. Like, this is his castle, but let's go to his real castle. So is that the one you want? Alright, I'll go with this one then. Real castle? How many castles do you have in this place anyways? Oh, I didn't mean that in a literal sense, Golmick says. You'll understand better once we get there. Now, where was that hidden lever again? Yes, here it is. The gnome reaches behind the throne with his right hand, and he pulls on a lever. This causes one of the stone blocks forming the door in front of us to move aside by itself, revealing a hidden staircase that leads to the lower levels of the castle. Barry, I leave the throne room in your care until I return, Golmick says. What? I say. Yes, yes, your highness, the king's servant says, almost at the same time as me. Oh, my apologies, Golmick says, after realizing the confusion he's created. I was talking to my servant. His name is also Barry. He then turns to face all of us. All right, this way, if you please, Golmick says as he starts to go down the stairs. The rest of us exchange a few looks, and then we follow the gnome until we reach an underground room filled with machine parts and prototypes, as well as various tools that seem to have been thrown around randomly after their use. In the middle of the room, there is a workbench on top of which we can see a large device that looks like a bigger version of Darren's transmitters, with a green light at the bottom. When we enter the room, Golmick was in the process of taking off his mantle and crown and putting on the oil-stained lab coat that we saw him wear earlier when he appeared on the hologram. Now that I look around more closely, I realize that this is in fact the exact room that he was transmitting from, and that the device on the workbench is likely the one he'd finished fixing right before the transmission. Lighten the mood before shipped off to death. You have no idea how many times I killed my characters when I did my first playthrough. It's part of the game. Chill. In fact, I knew that you were going to get him killed, but I let it happen anyways. It's part of the game. And we're not in combat. Welcome to my castle inside my castle, Golmick says. I found the secret room shortly after moving in here, and I quickly decided to take advantage of the large unused space in order to set up my new workshop. I haven't really been tinkering with devices as often as I would have liked since I became king, but I find this place always relaxes me after a heated discussion such as the one that I had with the ambassador earlier. Actually, you only get 19 save slots. You said that you had something you wanted to discuss with us in private, Darren says. Yes, I did, Golmick says. Let's start with your giant friend over there, who is currently shape-shifting into a dwarf. Damn it, Hadrick says. I should have known that it was all too good to be true. Is this the part where you kick me out of the tournament? Of course not, Golmick says. The rules of the tournament never explicitly stated that giants were not allowed in the tournament. We only avoided inviting giants to this contest because of the overwhelming advantage you would get from both your size and your strength. However, given that you have willingly shrunk yourself into the size of a dwarf, we have decided to make an exception in your case. You will be permitted to participate in this tournament as long as you do not shift yourself into anything bigger than what would normally be possible for a dwarf. And also, since you seem to be so fond of your dwarf form, this is how you will present yourself to all other participants from now on. I don't want any other mages finding out that you are, in fact, a giant. Are we clear? As clear as can be, Hadrick. As clear as can be, Hadrick says, grinning happily. Well, in that case, you are free to go, Golmick says. I no longer have any business to discuss with you. You mean that I am free to go to the arena, or... No, I mean that you're free to carry on with the first round of the tournament, Golmick says. Unlike your friends, you were not present at the scene of the crime, so there's no reason for us to incarcerate you. There is no need for you to go into the arena. The hell there isn't, Hadrick shouts. Do you think I came all the way here to go looking for pine cones? I came here to fight, damn it. I swear, if you don't let me fight in this arena, I'm going to start thrashing the whole neighborhood until your guards throw me in there themselves. I like to over-exaggerate sometimes as a form of humor, and I like to recognize that people are over-exaggerating and then take them at their word, or then respond as if you were speaking literally to fuck with you. It is my form of sarcasm. I know that I need to be more obvious with it. I've been told that I need to just start delivering my sarcasm in a less subtle manner. Okay, good. Shapeshifting into a lawn gnome. I believe he's a little bit taller than a lawn gnome, but, you know, his dimensions are off. It gives him a little bit of a handicap. Well, if you insist, then I can write a letter of admission for you. Oh wait, he's a dwarf, not a gnome. Well, if you insist, I can write a letter of admission for you, which you can give to the guards at the arena entrance. Golmek says they'll be sure to let you in once they see the royal seal. Perfect, Hadrick says. Much obliged. Should I also be writing a letter for the girl in the banshee over there? Golmek says as he looks towards Flower. Well, Flower starts to say, but Aluna interrupts. No, we're fine, she says as the girl's eyes turn blue. We'll watch the show from the spectator seats. Very well, Golmek says. Then I'll be sure to provide you with a ticket. I see you've done your homework, Hadrick says. I didn't think you'd also know about Aluna. My spies have been instructed to be extra vigilant when it comes to the mages from other continents, Golmek says. We've been keeping a close eye on you ever since you entered the city. Does this mean you were also watching us when we attacked the noble? Darren says. Yes. This is the reason why I wanted to speak to you in private. First of all, I would like to offer you an apology. I imagine that the scene you witnessed that day must have been quite shocking for outsiders like yourselves. You don't sound like you approve of what was happening with the slave girl, Kate says. I do not. I personally find that the way our society treats slaves is sickening, and that we are all responsible, in a way, for allowing this system to continue. I, myself, am not much better than my predecessors because I've barely done anything conclusive to address the problem since I moved into this castle. But why? Darren asks. Why haven't you done anything? You are the king. You could do so much to help these people. I believe he's able to get slightly larger than a dwarf, but he's not able to, massively improve and massively change his size into something bigger. Honestly, this shit is cool. It reminds me of a story set in EQOA. I think that I said that before, was an MMO I played for years on PS2. You may have said it, but I don't remember offhand. It's really good. I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in reading it themselves, or you could just watch the video. I don't think I've heard of it. Is there a phone version of it? It sounds familiar. Look up there, Golmek says as he points towards a metal device hanging from the ceiling. What about it? Darren asks as he gives the device a cursory glance. What you see over there is an invention of my own making, with the sole purpose of blocking communication towards the outside, Golmek says. I installed it here shortly after my arrival into the castle. You're saying that someone could be trying to listen to our conversation? I say. Oh, they're most certainly trying, Golmek says. You might not have noticed, but the room above us is littered with dozens of hidden devices, made for spying on conversations. Make no mistake, I am not the only person to have an information network in this city. and the control I have over my kingdom is in fact a lot more limited than you might think. And who are these people that are keeping tabs on you exactly? Hadrick asks. The other kings? Yes, in a way, Golmick says. The ones in charge of keeping an eye on me. The ones in charge of keeping an eye on me are the group of Lasathi who are allies with the other kings. The ones in charge of keeping an eye on me are a group of Lasathi who are allies with the other kings, who work independently. They control a vast underground network of spies and assassins who rival my own, and their purpose is to make sure that I don't take too many initiatives that might endanger the future of Varathia. If I try to make a decision as bold as freeing all of the slaves in my city, I may well get assassinated before I even manage to sign the decree. So, you're just going to stand there and do nothing then? Darren asks. Not at all, Golmick says. In fact, I've been working for years to improve our relations with the animal kingdom for this exact purpose. Their territories have been getting smaller and smaller due to the increased number of monster attacks in recent years. Their negotiators have become a little less rigid lately. I promise to provide them with shelter within our walls on the condition that they help us clear the Lasathi threat from our city. I will have a meeting in this very room with one of the representatives of the animal kingdom in a few days, where we will discuss this exact topic. If everything goes well, it is likely that we will be reaching an agreement in the next few months. So what you're trying to say here is that you've got everything under control and that we should no longer interfere, Hadrick asks. Yes, exactly, Golmick says. I want to make sure that you are aware of the whole situation in case you'd be tempted to do something rash again. Actually, I think we've already had I think we've already filled our quota of rash actions for the week. A few months is too long. Maybe we can take care of your Lasathi problem instead. I feel like good Barry would make this decision. Smart Barry would probably be undecided. But good Barry would do this. So I'm going to make this decision. A few months is too long. Maybe we could take care of your Lasathi problem instead. Oh? Golmick says while stroking his chin. And do you speak for your entire team when you are making this proposal, young Lasathi? Or do you speak for yourself? Or do you only speak for yourself? The gnome's words took me off guard. While we've already been traveling together for a week, I'm not sure if everyone would agree to join me in this potentially suicidal mission. As I stand there trying to think of an answer to give the gnome, Darren takes my side and he puts his hand on my shoulder. He speaks for me as well, Darren tells Golmick. And for me, Hadrick says as he steps forward, after hearing what happened to the slave girl yesterday, I would be more than happy to teach these bastards a lesson if they are the ones responsible for what's going on in the city. Interesting, Golmick says, and then he turns towards Kate. What about you, artificial mage? Are you volunteering for this mission as well? These Lasathi you spoke of, Kate says. Do you know if they are working with other artificial mages? Is there a woman called Diane who controls electricity helping them? As far as I know, the Lasathi in my city are not using any mages as bodyguards, Golmick says. My spies would have certainly found out by now if there were other artificial mages in Thilius. I see, Kate says as she pauses for a few seconds. Even if Diane is not in the city, there's still a chance that the Lasathi might know something about her current whereabouts. If you're planning to storm their headquarters anyways, then I'm coming as well. Well, if everyone else is going, then I guess we're going too, right, Petal? Flower says enthusiastically. The girl's eyes turn blue again, and Aluna takes a deep sigh, but she doesn't say anything. I'll have to admit that I wasn't expecting you all to offer your help so wholeheartedly, Golmik says. He takes a few moments to clear his thoughts before he continues. Very well then, Golmik says. I will think about what you've said. We will continue this discussion further once you return from the arena. After you manage to earn your freedom, you will need to stop by my castle again in order to receive some documents which will prove that you've served your sentence for your crimes. While these documents will most likely not be needed in Thilius, they should help you to. While these documents will most likely not be needed in Thilius, they should help you deal with the guards that might try to have you arrested in other cities for the murder of the Earl of Allendor. Now, unless you have anything else to discuss with me, I will start writing the letter of admission for the dwarf, and then you can be on your way. Oof. There's a very aggressive knot right here. Once he's done talking, Golmik writes a few words on a piece of paper, stamps his seal on the letter, and then gives it to Hadrick so he can show it to the guards at the arena. Just as we turn to leave, the gnome suddenly remembers something that he forgot to tell. Suddenly remembers he forgot to tell us something. Oh, and one last thing, Golmik says. I believe this should go without saying, but I will mention it nonetheless. You should never talk about anything you've discussed in this room as long as you are inside the city. Not even amongst yourselves. You never know when someone might be listening. I called you into this secure room to chat privately because I felt that I could trust you with this information. I hope that you will not betray my trust. Of course not, Darren says. We will take care. Very well then, Golmik says. In that case, I wish you good luck in the arena, and may the gods be with you. May they watch over us. May they watch over us all, Darren says. Cool. After we finish our discussion with Golmik, we say our goodbyes to the gnome, and then we left him to work on his devices while we start to climb up the narrow stairs one by one. When we reach the throne room, the king's servant was already waiting for us at the top of the stairs. This way, if you please, the servant says. This way, if you please, the servant says as he starts walking toward the exit. Make sure that you follow me closely so you won't get lost. Don't worry, Barry. We'll be right behind you, Hedrick says, and then he grins at me widely. Isn't that right, Barry? Oh, shut up, I tell him, as we all start to follow the servant out of the room and towards our new prison. Alright, save here. Cool. Oops. Let's look at the achievements. This is not one we would have been able to discover. Cool. 3 out of 4. Transfer achievements to the cloud. transfer local saves to the cloud. Anyone who's wondering why I'm doing this, I've lost my saves before and had to speedrun this game multiple times for the stream. And now I'm paranoid, even though it hasn't happened since I switched to this emulator. Oops. Cool. Alright, well, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I'm now going to end the recording, but I'm not going to end the stream quite yet. So for the people who are watching this, and anyone who's been here for the stream, if you guys, you can download this and play your own playthrough yourself for free, or if you're feeling too lazy, you can always watch my previous streams of Magium, which are all on my YouTube. Wow. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and talk to you next time.